Module 3 study guide, look at 1. What's the product of negative 1.24 and 4.25? Well, we have a negative times a positive, and a negative times a positive will give us a negative, so we know that it cannot be C or D. So we would do 4.25 times 1.24. And let's multiply this out. 4 times 5 is 20, carry the 2. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 2 is 10. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 1 is 17. And a 0 for the tens place. 2 times 5 is 10, carry the 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. And 2 times 4 is 8. We need to add 2 zeros now. 1 times 5 is 5, 1 times 2 is 2, and 1 times 4 is 4. We need to add these up. Zeros, zeros. 5 and 5 is 10, plus 7 is 17. 8 and 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12. And 1 and 4 is 5. We need to move the decimal 1, 2, 3, 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So we know it's negative, so we will get negative 5.27. 1 is A. For problems like this, you actually don't need to do any work for, because you know that you have a number that's a little greater than 4 times a number that's a little greater than 1. So when you multiply these two, you know you're going to get a number that's an absolute value that's greater than 4. So we can't get a number that's less than 4. We have to get a number that's absolute value is greater than 4, than the absolute value of 4. So on to number 2. Ben walked 2/5 of a mile. Tanya walked 1/4 of a mile. What fraction of the mile did they walk in total? So what fraction did they walk together? So to do that one, we need to add them up. So we have 2/5 plus 1/4. Now the issue here is we cannot add them the way that they are. We need to have a common denominator. When you're finding a common denominator, you could simply multiply the two together, or start with the bigger denominator, in this case 5, and go through those multiples. Does 4 go into 5? No. What's the next multiple of 5? 10. Does 4 go into 10? Nope. What's the next multiple? That's 15. Does 4 go into 15? No. So what's the next multiple? 20. Does 4 go into 20? Yes, it does. So we're looking for a denominator of 20 for both of these. How do we get a 5 to a 20? We need to multiply both the numerator and the denominator by 4. 4 times 5 gives us 20. 4 times 2 gives us 8. Now we need to get 4 to 20. 4 times 5 gives us 20. So we'll need to multiply the numerator by 5 as well. 1 times 5 gives us 5. Now we're adding these. Our denominator will stay the same. 8 plus 5 is 13. So 13 over 20. That's what fraction they walked together. So 2 is D. Moving on to 3. What is 6 3/8 written as a decimal? Two ways we could do this. Change the whole thing to an improper fraction, which will work. I think that's a little more work than we have to do. I like to look here and say, hey, all we're doing is changing the way it looks, not changing the value. So if we have 6 whole numbers as a fraction, we know that we're going to have 6 whole numbers as a decimal. If we can recognize that, now we're just taking 3/8 and changing that to a decimal. So read this a different way. Instead of 3 over 8, we have 3 divided by 8. 3 divided by 8. 8 does not go into 3, so we need to add a decimal, and now we can add as many zeros as we need. 8 times what gets us close to 30? 8 times 3, and 8 times 3 is 24. Subtracting gets 6. It did not cancel, so we need to add a 0 and bring it down. 8 goes into 60, 7 times. 8 times 7 is 56. Minus, and we get 4. It did not cancel. Add a 0 and bring it down. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 8 times 5 is 40. That cancels out. So the decimal portion is 0.375. We need to go back and remember that we had 6 whole numbers. So we have 6 whole numbers as a decimal. So it'll be 6.375. So 3 is B. Okay, number 4. This person built half of the shed on Monday, 2/3 of the shed on Tuesday. She finished on Wednesday. What fraction of the shed did she build on Wednesday? So we do not know how much she built on Wednesday, but we know that Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, if we add up those 3 days, we get a completed shed. So how much did she do on Monday? That's 1/2. How much did she do on Tuesday? That's 2/5. We don't know how much she did on Wednesday. We need to figure it out. So we need to add these. There's an issue. We do not have a common denominator, so we need to get one. 2 does not go into 5, so the next multiple of 5 is 10. And 2 goes into 10. How do we get 2 to 10? Multiply by 5. If we do that to the denominator, we have to do it to the numerator. 2 times 5 is 10. 5 times 1 is 5. How do we convert our second fraction to have a denominator of 10? We have to multiply by 2. 5 times 2 is 10. 2 times 2 is 4. When we add these, the denominator stays the same. 5 plus 4 is 9. Now we might think that 9/10 is the answer and go straight to option D. That's not the answer. This is how much they built on Monday and Tuesday. If you look back at the question, she finished it on Wednesday. So how much more did she need to build to finish this? She's already done 9/10 on Monday and Tuesday. So how much does she have left to do? Well, at the end, we should have the whole thing done, so it should be 10 over 10. So you need to add 1/10. So 4 is A. For number 5, a box of cereal contains that many ounces. It costs this much. What's the cost to the nearest cent of the cereal per ounce? Okay, so really if we set this up properly, we actually don't have to do the work. Could you? Sure, but you don't have to. So what is the cost per ounce? So how much is 1 ounce? We don't know, but we know that this many ounces is this much. So when you set this up, how much per ounce? So the cereal per ounce. So we'll actually set it up as cereal per ounce. Now what numbers do we have here? 5.49 is the cost. We need to divide that by the ounces, which is 23.4. Now, this looks really scary. You don't need to do this. When you do this division, you'll get your answer. Let's just cover this up for a second. Does 23 go into 5? No. And we can read that as 5 divided by 23. 23 does not go into 5. So our answer is going to be less than 1. Which of these have answers less than 1? Fortunately for us, there's only that one. If there were more, we'd actually have to do this division. $5.49 over 23.4 ounces, because we're looking for the cost per ounce. Fortunately, there's only one here that is less than 1, so we can just estimate and reason that A is the answer.